good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're joining us from. On behalf of Alura, it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this webinar today. I'm Prashant, and I will be your moderator for this session. As a matter of order, I think we have four speakers scheduled for today's webinar. Our first speaker is Mr. Somu, and I'll do a quick introduction of all the speakers in a short while from now before they speak. Our second speaker is going to be Dr. William Serna, who is the CEO of Alura, and it is an absolute pleasure to have William take out time and then spend with us today. So thank you, William, for that. And then our third speaker is the co-CEO of Asimetrix, Juan Francisco Chica. And then, of course, our fourth speaker is Dr. Juliana Toro, who has some very important things to share with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the topic for this evening's discussion, which is, I think, very relevant given the circumstance and the time that we find ourselves in today. And I think it is something that impacts each and every one of us in our personal and professional settings. And I think the topic surrounding building business resilience is critical as we move forward and press forward in this extremely turbulent, volatile environment that's changing so rapidly. And I don't think we recognize the world today as it were a month, 2 months ago. So I think now more than ever before, it is a very appropriate topic, and I'm glad to be a part of this conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker today. He is Mr. Somu Kumar Ambat. So a quick introduction, Mr. Somu started his career, I think he's been part of the animal health industry for about 40 years now, although he started his career in human health with Johnson & Johnson. In India, he was actually known as the earbud man because he was the one who launched earbuds to the Indian country. He then switched careers to animal health, went on to have a stint at Venky's where he set up the operations in the southern part of India, and then of course went on to lead the operations for the animal health division, and then went on to join Elanco, where again he set up Elanco's operations in India, as the country director for India, and then of course Korea, South Africa, and subsequently as the area director for the Asian region. He spent a good 18 years or so in Elanco, and his last assignment at Elanco was as the director of international operations for emerging markets. He then went on to found a management consulting firm called Sapience Agribusiness Consulting, and Sapience is incidentally, we're proud that Sapience is actually the strategic partner representing Alura's interests in India. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Somu, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prashant, and good evening to everyone in India and Asia. And good morning to my colleagues and friends from around the world, the United States, Colombia, and other places who have joined in. I think we can all agree that the world around us has changed. And the topic of my presentation is aimed at managing change, the post-COVID, primarily providing with an Indian perspective. So I think we can all agree that the world around us has changed. That's what I started. When we were moving into January, February, or March, nobody could have even predicted the extent to which our state of equilibrium has been shattered. The situation has impacted every one of us, every family, every business, every industry, and all countries around the world. Today, 52 days after our first lockdown in India, I would like to share with you some of the stories, some insights, some learning on the market research that we have conducted after speaking to scores of our stakeholders in our poultry industry from every part of the country. first, let's look at how the pandemic played out and our emotional and business responses to it. So, in any pandemic situations around the world, there are three stages of pandemic responses. The first one is basically on the survival. And when we look at the survival, the first thing that goes out of our mind are some of the questions that come out. I'm worried about everything. I'm glued to the news and social media. I'm scared of the unknown and uncertainty. I need to protect my family and the near ones. And that's the first stage of any of the pandemic response that we first look into. And then thereafter, I think we go into what we call as an acceptance mode. And in the acceptance mode, we begin to start talking about, I'm learning to let go of what I cannot control. I'm limiting my social media news consumption. I'm less stressed and I'm sleeping better. And thereafter, we go into the third phase of the pandemic response, and that is accepting and then thereafter growing. And some of the responses that we hear is, I'm focusing on what is in my control. I live more in the present moment. I have confidence in my strength and resilience. As a business, and in whichever business we are in, and more specifically in the business that we are in, the journey remains the same. And the business responses to this pandemic response remains the same. So we asked our stakeholders across the country, how have they been impacted by this response, by the pandemic, and what are their responses to this? It has been an insightful learning from the market research across the country that we did in India, and here are some of the results that came out. So what we found, and the key findings on the pandemic response on our market research was, 69 respondents said they are between the survival and the acceptance mode. 81 respondents were battling with what's next, and how to respond to this unfolding situation. 96% respondents expressed a strong desire to sustain their current operations. 94 respondents believe the cost of production, raw materials, and transportations will go up. 63% of the respondents believe the situation will hasten the adoption of automation and technology. 100% of the respondents believe future growth lies in managing cash flows more efficiently. And another 100% of the respondents believe volatility is a business environment and is here to stay. And developing a business resilience is the key. This has been an extremely insightful finding that we found out from about 200 and odd respondents around the country to share with us what has been their journey on this pandemic response. If we can go into the next slide. And taking all the responses up and sharing with our own perspectives, I believe the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Business resilience is important endeavor to achieve the holistic strength on which to base business success. The sooner we understand a growth response to the pandemic, if we continue to be in a survival mode, our reactions to the growth will become extremely and exceptionally slow. And this is what we have learned. People who have moved in from a survival to an acceptance mode and thereafter the growth have seen better responses to the pandemic response and into the business than people who have not. Going into the next slide. So ideally, we looked at building business resilience is what all of us seek, and from our vantage point looks like the key to unlocking a stronger, sustainable business lies in this new environment. So it certainly begs to ask this question: what are the characteristics of the business resilience? The first one is our ability to have adaptability to strategic adaptability. The second one is agile leadership. The third one is robust governance. Now, let me explain a little bit on each one of them. The strategic adaptability is building the ability as a business to handle changing circumstances successfully, even if this means moving away from their core business. Agile leadership, to build the ability to take measured risks and confidence and respond quickly and appropriately to both opportunities and threats. And the third one is robust governance, which is basically the intersection of all the three put together, demonstrating accountabilities across organizations, structures based upon culture of trust, transparency, and innovation, ensuring they remain true to their vision and values. So this is where we believe the characteristics of the business resilience really stands on. Next one. I'd like to stop for all of us to stop for a moment and think about what could be the possibilities that lie ahead. The video is gone. I'd like to share with you the three key areas from my experience that aims to paint a picture of our future. The first one, the business will attain a new state of normalcy. We can go into the next slide. And this is something that we perceive. This has been the market research conducted across the globe. Travels are going to be restricted in the future. Personal face-to-face meeting will become increasingly rare. Cash flow will become a concern with people wanting to maintain low inventory and just-in-time purchase. Debtors and collectibles will go up. And the way the consumers purchase will be changed forever. This is the first new business normal that we think will change the business in the future. The second one is that we believe digital will be the new mantra. And we have looked at it from various research points of view. Rate of adoption of digital technology will become exponential. People who do not adopt to the new digital technology will remain behind. Most of the training programs, conferences, meetings, and deals will be closed via video conferences, video calls, and webinars. Marketing will move online. Social media will become the tool of choice to reach out to customers. Digital will drive convenience, and this we are already seeing with online purchases in meat products. Branding will become critically important to differentiate and build a sustainable business in the future. People who are really going to be serious in this business will probably look at differentiating their products from the others in the pack. So branding will also become critically important. Having the next slide, please. So what does this mean in terms of how do we gear up for the future? Reskilling is more important now than ever before, and especially adopting the digital skills. Demonstrating leadership and staying ahead is the only way that we can move forward. The third thing, which is very critical to the cycle of the business, is deep understanding of the purchase patterns of our customers' customers, and cycle of purchase becomes important for us to manage cash flows and forecast requirements. We will also need to develop new skills which will need to be acquired by business establishments to set up people who are well versed in IT infrastructure, media management, and other digital platforms. Prices will be driven up. E-commerce will play an increasingly important role. Demand, and this, I'm saying this from a tremendous amount of research we have conducted across and many research work that has come across. Specifically in India, demand for protein, eggs, and poultry will surge in the next couple of months. If we can go into the next slide. We believe, and I strongly believe, our growth from an acceptance to growth, we need to quickly move away. We have moved past our survival, and we need to move quickly past the acceptance leading to the growth. It's only that building business resilience will enable us to make the transition from acceptance to growth. We believe we are at this juncture and would be happy to hear other speakers share their experience and insights from around the world. We're also excited that at some of the possibilities that have emerged, and then we are pleased to present to you today as a possible solution that will help you build business. We'll go into the next slide. We believe that prosperity, growth, happiness, and abundance will be with us in the near future. And on our parting note, our life work has been centered on delivering high quality protein to consumers. And for India, I believe the future is bright and filled with opportunities. I thank you for your attention. Alura and Sapience are here to help and support in this endeavor, and thank you for your time. I now yield to the moderator.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Somu, for that very insightful and thought-provoking perspective on the Indian aspect of the business. Thank you very much. Just a note to all attending, we will take questions, but we will take those questions at the end of all the presentations. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the question and answer feature on Zoom or a message to the audience. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Dr. William Serna. And we're very lucky to have William join us this evening. William is the CEO and president of Alura. A quick introduction, he is a veterinary doctor, a DVM, and his career has spanned over 3 decades in the animal health industry. A large part of that was with Elanco. He spent 21 years odd with Elanco as the director of the Caribbean basin to begin with. He then moved on to a much larger portfolio in global marketing, and then, of course, as the director of global alliances. We're proud to have him as our leader and as our CEO. And at this point in time, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. William Serna. Over to you, sir.
Hey, President, how are you? Thank you very much. And thank you to all the colleagues that are attending from several parts of the world. Let me try to share the screen and see if we can work with the technology. Is that working or not yet?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay. Sorry about that. Please let me know, Prashant, if,
Yeah, I will let you know as soon as I see it.
okay.
If you'd like, I can also try and share the screen on my end.
Okay, let's do that. Perfect. Well, let's talk about, the business, building the business resilience around the poultry. And when we talk about this global perspective, uh, it's something interesting to share. So when, as Mr. Somu mentioned it, during this period of uncertainties, it's very difficult to say that any of one of us are an expert, because the reality is that there is not experts to manage the situation that we are happening today. So let's move to the first slide, please. I just want to start making the conversation and discussion that the good thing that we have is that we are in the right industry, in the right business. If we talk about resilience and we try to implement that, the first four questions that we may have there is how to achieve it, how to learn, how to become, and how to measure. Because for this time, there is a lot of people, a lot of readings talking about resilience. But the key question is, how can we be really, strategically in our business, develop a strategy that can allow us to survive, to grow, and to move forward with a reasonable, speed in comparison with our competitors or with other countries or the original plan that we had in all our companies. So if we talk about resilience, next please, I just want to share the concept of what it means. So when we have a very strong situation like we are happening today, basically we can fall into the post-traumatic syndrome disease that is very critical, is very well diagnosed, with a very well diagnosis. And this data is coming from the University of Pennsylvania, where those guys have been studying the specific case of resilience, and they have today a course to be able to join and work with the companies to move forward into this situation. The worst case scenario is a strong situation happen, there is a depression, increase, and the worst case scenario is just even to arrive to the suicide or to the paralyzed and freaking and not do any action with the business that we have. The key positive things is that we need to recognize that anxiety is there, and it's not bad to feel, anxiety in these uncertainty times. We may be with some depression, but also the key point is when the companies and when the people and when the leaders are able to back to zero, physical and emotional. And the best case scenario is when we just can be react very quickly and be better than it was before. That is what we call resilience. So the question that we have then is, how can we just move our businesses to be able to be better than before as quickly as we can? Next, please. So the optimism is the key. The University of Pennsylvania, they have a word that they call PRIMA. And PRIMA is the way that they basically try to measure the speed of businesses' resilience to be able to move forward. And they have basically recommended 5 specific points. The first one is positive emotion. Why positive emotion? Because we need to realize and we need to understand and we need to recognize that everything today is unexpected. Everything is unexpected. Market is unexpected. The life is unexpected. The relationship with people is unexpected because nobody knows what is the reaction of everything. If we maintain that positive emotion, we will be able to look and explore all the possibilities. And I just want to bring here a phrase that Mr. Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, and what he says is the speed of progress depends of the speed of experiments. What it means, the speed of feedback will help us to learn. As much as I have very quickly information, feedback from our customers, from our in the industry, we are able to pursue the new future, the new company, the new environment. And that is one of the biggest advantage of the poultry industry. If we are talking about the different protein producers or protein produce industries, poultry is this industry that can give us feedback very quickly. You know, the cattle industry, they take a very long cycles, and the swine industry in the global perspective is taking, you know, medium to long, you know, periods as well to give us the feedback. The second point is the engagement. In this unexpected, you know, situation that we all are living, we need a team to succeed. You cannot expect to do everything by yourself. And the key important point is that we as a leaders in all organizations, the only thing that we need, well, that do we need to be concerned is how to create change, how to lead that change, and how can we just, the next point, engage to all our people to support us in that changes that are creating the new company, the new environment. The relationships also are very, very important because, as mentioned in the first point, when we are looking all the possibilities, that means all the possibilities. To be able to succeed, to live with our companies to the next level, to move the companies to the next level, we may need to strengthen the relationship with potential competitors and be allies in one specific segment of the market. We need to think in different actions that we didn't never take before. Why not to be ally of a supplier? We are thinking to have alliances, very strong alliances with our customers, some customers, and do something that different things that we didn't did in the past. We never did in the past. So that kind of relationships will be able for us to help to succeed in a situations like we are living, and we are seeing that mainly in countries in Latin America, for example, is during this period of times, as a company, I cannot succeed if the industry where I am living, where I participate, is not succeeding. So very, very difficult cases or minimum cases we will see when one company succeeds and the rest of the companies of that industry doesn't are able to succeed, or the industry succeed, or all the companies will not be able to move to the next level. The meaning is important because today the purpose is what motivates that consumer, the purpose of each company, and how the consumer he that company will be able to accelerate, increase the close relationship with that company, and be able to move to the next level as well. And the last one is the accomplishment. If we don't create and set up a new different goal, different from the beginning of this crisis goal, will be very difficult to achieve again, because one of the key points is that everything will be different today, but these 5 specific steps, the positive emotion, the engagement, so we need to succeed with our all people, the relationships, thinking beyond boundaries, the meaning of the business and the meaning that we allow to create to the customers, and the accomplishment of those 5 points is what will be basically moving to the next level. So we can move to the next slide, please. The second point is, yes, we need to accept the brutal facts. And what are the brutal facts on this specific period of times? The first one is that, yes, 2020 will be a difficult year. We cannot, hide that fact. This will be a difficult year. We don't have nothing to do. But the key point here is, if we know that, what is the new strategic thinking and what is the discipline that we need to work to be able to navigate through a difficult year? You cannot plan to manage the new situations. You need to manage the new situations as it appears. So the second point is, remember, everything is unexpected. So when this kind of situation happens, obviously we need to react very, very, very quickly. Change today is everything, and we need to accept that fact. And Mr. Somu mentioned it at the beginning, all those changes that are perceived and that are reality in other countries about the situation, what is happening. So the digital world, the consumer new behaviors, all those kind of things are new. And if we adapt very quickly to that new change, new world, basically we will have more chance to succeed. There is not expert in this situation. The only thing that we can do is just basically share experiences. And by getting the learnings of the experiences of many people, we will be able to succeed because we can adopt, copy, and implement things that make sense for our own companies. In our case, for example, in our company, from the beginning, from the first date of this situation, we create an emergency team. You know what means emergency team? It's a team with the leader of every single of the division or businesses that we have, and we had one meeting every single day with three main purposes. First, we need to take care of our people. We do a very quick review on how is the status, how is happening, or what is happening with our people around the world in every single of the manufacturing plants, because we need to keep that done. The second one is how to can be sure that we keep our business moving. You can see today through the news the situation that we have here in the US. We have enough birds to produce. We have enough customers to buy. We have enough, distribution channel. But suddenly the manufacturing plants, the processing plants are shutting down because these viruses are affecting the people that are going into the plants. So suddenly we may have a difficulty to get that protein because one piece of the channel is closed. What piece of the change is closed? So that's why it's very important to take care very, very, very much about our people, because those guys in every single of the divisions of the companies are the ones that will be helping us to keep operative and to keep working. The last point is we are in the right business. So in the middle of everything, one important point that we will be able to, or we are blessed, is that we are in the right business. Why I'm saying that we are in the right business? Can you imagine what happens if the world is suffering of a pandemic like this, but all of us are suffering hunger? Hungry is probably the most difficult disease. A pandemic is very, very bad, but a pandemic with hunger is even worse. And we are in the right business. At this stage, where I'm thinking in all the situation that is happening, well, I am very, 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 grateful that we are not in the airline industry, for example, in the hotel industry, in the car production industry, in some other manufacturing industry, because those guys, they had to shut down their businesses and they are not operating, they are not flying, they are not moving people, they are not receiving tourists. So they are closed, they don't have income. Yes, our business in the poultry industry is difficult to survive, but we are able to operate, and we need to continue operating because we need to feed the world, we need to feed our population, and we need to keep the people alive. So next one, when we see and do an analysis of that point that we are in the next, and we are in the right business, sorry, the next slide, please. is when we see the global data. One of the key parameters to follow that is the export. Why the export? Because when we review the export, we are creating and we are analyzing here three specific factors. One, how the local productions are moving around. Two, how the transportations, the lockdown of the countries are basically stopping or reducing the possibility to move protein from one country to the other. And the third one is how the consumption around the world is moving, because the pattern of the movement of the protein can provide us those indications. So if we see here the trend, and we just take care about the poultry, you know, the trend that we had for the last 5 years, it was growing. The projection that we have is in this pattern bar, and the solid bar is the forecast. So yes, we will be reducing the exports in the world, but still growing. We're still over the 11 million tons of chicken meat being, you know, exporting around the world. Similar for the pork, and basically the only protein that are decreasing in terms of export is beef. But the other two proteins, with the main impact of chickens, will continue to grow. So that is telling us that even this situation that is happening, you know, the transportation limitation, the biosecurity measure with the lockdown of the countries, the productions, the processing, allow the globe, the world, to continue receiving the animal protein, specifically chickens. The next one. If we see here, basically, this is the production. When we see the global production, the global protein production, chicken, yes, is basically reducing a little bit, but it's only 2%. We see in other proteins, we see reductions, dramatically reductions in production. But when we see the global production, we are basically producing 100 million tons. This is the forecast of April. And the forecast of January, it was 102 million tons. And the last year, the production, it was 99 million tons. So at the global level, chicken still there. Yes, it's not growing in the speed that we had in the past, but it's still there and it's still growing and it's still being produced. So it's a very good news in the industry that we have. The differences then becomes when we compare the differences and the affected of the countries. You know, in this specific case, we see that the European Union basically is reducing the production. And India is there, is a little bit reduced, but not too much comparing with the potential or with the previous year. Yes, it's not growing like the expectation was. You know, we all know that we came from a very difficult 2019, you know, and the recovery of the industry in India after the 2019, it was expected to be so fast, so quick, so big, but unfortunately, this situation slowed down that growth, but even, you know, to the levels of the previous year, 2018. So that is not necessarily bad under the current circumstances. And if we are looking here about the consumption, the domestic consumption, basically, most of the country have been able to manage the consumption internally, you know, and even keep the protein production in poultry able to supply and to be export. The other point, but this is another situation, is that, you know, globally, the major meat producer produced in the world, it was pork, and all the projections basically had in those forecasts that by 2021, next year, poultry will be could be the biggest protein consumed in the world. You know what? That happened in 2020, especially because the African swine fever situation that happened in China, but also because this resilience of this market, of this kind of production, this year, the poultry industry or the chicken meat is the most consumed meat in the world, 100 million tons, while the pork industry, the pork meat, is basically 94 million tons that is basically produced around the world. So the next one. We talk a little bit about the export, the trade. When we see the global total numbers about trade, yes, the trade basically is reducing by 4% only, 4% only under these current circumstances is not too much. We may say that, yes, we didn't grow, but at least we didn't have at the global level with this novel protein big losses because that didn't happen. The countries that are the major importers is still there, still importing the similar amount of meat, and the countries that are producing meat are the same and still exporting the similar amount of meat. So in this category, poultry, especially chicken, are basically the winners of the animal protein during these difficult and very difficult times. So let's move to the next one, please. What is happening and what we are learning? What we are learning basically when we just put together the experiences from Europe, the experiences from the Americas, let's put that in Americas, and some specific points in Asia that we believe may give us some reference to develop our own strategies. One, yes, the close of food services shift from restaurants to home. This shift is not only created difference in the supply chains, it's also creating difference for the new consumer. So if a company like us reinvent ourselves, we need now to start thinking that that consumer still buying and eating protein, but now they need to cook by themselves and they need to cook in a different ways. So if we provide to those categories a different product, they probably will be choose that specific protein. The increasing of online shopping is something that is happening. The suppliers are trying to go direct to the consumers. This situation creates obviously stress. And in most of the country, what we are seeing is that, the protein producers, they do not relate to date on the distribution channels, and they are also trying to reach the consumers by themselves, trying to move volume. The other situation that happened is frozen protein goes up. Yes, in my country, I'm from Colombia originally. So in my country, everyone was preferring, fresh meat. But during this time, we need to go there and people are buying a little bit more. So they need to back home and they need to froze part of the meat that they had. Because, that's the new behavior and the concern that what if I go to the supermarket, what if I go to the channel and I cannot get my protein? So I need to buy a little bit more. I need to froze part of that. So the next time that I go and look, you may be choosing, a frozen protein versus the fresh protein that we had. But, the frozen market is basically goes up. So we need to have and understand about the market, especially in big countries. Why? Because we may have different stages of the pandemic. That means different business models. So countries like the US, for example, we have here some states that are open, some states that now restaurants begins to be open, but we have other states that still lock down. So when the restaurant is open, we need to go back to the original model to supply that change. But I cannot apply the same model to the other states where they have some restriction on some different position, Over demand is something that is present, and the different management of the pricing is basically situations that are affecting in a different level. So for example, today in the US, the prices are down to the producers. Why? Because they have a lot of concentration of, poultry or pig because the situation with the manufacturing plants. But when the prices goes down to the producer, the prices go up to the consumer. So we have to pay amazingly, more expensive kilo of any protein. Just to give you an example, dozen of eggs 6 weeks ago in the US, the price for the consumer, it was $1. per dozen. Now, today is $3 per dozen. Every single country in the world, egg production is not enough. Why? Because it's a protein, it's cheap a protein, is versatile protein, and everyone wants to secure some kind of protein. You know, when the income per capita is not so high, eggs becomes the most precious and easy protein to consume. You know, so what are doing, you know, poultry associations and producers around the world? They are trying today to reinvent to reinvent themselves to show the eggs as or with the most of differentiation that they can. It is very interesting. The country that has the biggest eggs consumption per capita is Mexico, with more than 310 eggs per capita. So that means that every Mexican, that is like 100 million people there, are eating at least 1.2 eggs per day, you know, in that country. And when you have the opportunity to visit Mexico and you go to a restaurant to take a breakfast, I didn't put here, but I have that slide because I love that slide. I just took a picture of the menu. They have 26 different ways to prepare eggs at breakfast, with different names, with different condiments, with different flavor. 26 variety to prepare one egg. So that's why, you know, that versatility of this kind of protein is making them to succeed and still growing. So again, you know, the consumer preference are changing. This is very interesting for us that are working in this you know, industry. When we just go there and analyze Europe, for example, the free-range chickens decrease. Organic chicken, decrease. Labeled chicken, what means labeled chickens? Non-antibiotics ever, no hormones added. A lot of stuff that we know that is true because the chickens never receive a hormone, but the label says that the volumes are decreasing. The volumes are diminished. While the conventional production, so the chicken that is produced in a conventional way, is increasing. The same happened in the US. How can we read that? In these difficult situations and in situations of uncertainty, the consumer just prefer the cheap protein, the secure protein, and whatever is available. So that is a very important lesson that we are learning from all these situations. The second point, food with preservatives are greatly appreciated now. How come food with preservatives now has better preference from the consumer? Yes, and makes sense. Why? Because as mentioned before, we as a consumer go to the supermarket, go to the markets, buy the protein, but we need to take that protein for at least 3-4 days. In the past, I was basically buying on a daily basis. Today, if I can claim that the eggs that my company produce can stay, you know, in a very good quality for 30 days, for 35 days, 2 additional days more than the conventional timing of freshness, that is very appreciated by the consumers today. Functional food is very appreciated today. Any single label that can say to the consumer, improve immunity, you know, generate increase of the defenses, increase the nutrition to avoid and manage, you know, health problems more easily and dramatically. Those kind of labels are replacing the organic, the free range, all those kind of things. Because today, every one of us in the world, you know, more than 7 billion people in the world, we all are concerned. We want to keep us healthy. And the 2 ways to keep us healthy is good nutrition and some support to our organisms to be able to survive until challenges of the disease. So functional food labels are today growing and very appreciated from the consumer. and a reality that is happening that I know that has impact in India as well as in Mexico, as well as in Dominican Republic, as well as in Peru, because all those are the wet markets, the biggest wet markets in the world are decreasing, and the frozen and processed are basically more appreciated by the consumers. So a new environment and a new situation that is happening. And as I mentioned before, I'm not telling and I'm not trying and I do not pretend to say, you guys, I'm the expert and this is the situation that is happening. I'm just telling you what we are seeing, what the situation are happening, what other companies are doing to be able to succeed and be the winners at the end of this situation that we all are facing. So the next one, and we are just basically closing. So with all that story, with all that situation, the decision-making process is the third and more important things that we need to have, we need to do. Why? Because you or we need to realize something. We do not manage crisis. We need to do management to the crisis. That is a totally different thing. You know, if you remember, I mentioned it back about the change. And now we like to recommend you a very interesting, and it's not new, it's a very old book that is called Leading Change, that is from John Cotter. Why? Because that Leading Change, when you read that and go through that, that book provides to us eight specific steps as a recommendation to do. And when you go through those 8 steps, you realize that you start doing management to something. What are those eight points or 8 steps? 1, establish a sense of urgency. What we are seeing in the industry is that the time to take decision, the cycle of that time to take that decision should be today shorter. If my decision cycle takes in the past 1 month, now we need to take decisions in 1 week. The second point is create guiding coalitions. Yes, we need a team from different disciplines in our company to be able to take those decisions and to be able to manage that decision quickly and implement it quickly. Number 3, develop a new vision. We need to keep the purpose of the company. We need to keep the purpose of the company and long-term, medium-term, but we need to create a new vision for this year, for 2020. 2020 is a different year. If we have that new vision, all our people, all the people that help us to do that change will feel that they are winning, that they are adding value to something that is important for everyone, inclusive for myself, and that will help us to communicate, to execute faster and quickly. The fourth point is communicate the change and vision. And I will move to the second point. Today, communication is everything. Don't hesitate to communicate to your teams every day. Why? Because every one of us, today, we had more than 7 billion people wake up every day with uncertainty. If you want that huge changes in your companies, being able to execute, communicate those to your people. Create those coalitions, establish the sense of urgency. The fifth one that we also discussed during the presentation is empower your people to actions. I don't know in India, but I know in Latin America how we work. If you do an evaluation about how many meetings you run in your company in a period of time, 1 month, in 1 week, just internalize and ask yourself, how many of those meetings it was for planning, just for planning? How many of those meetings just happens to brainstorm, just for brainstorm? How many of those meetings was just for discussions? And how many of those meetings was for specific actions? What do we need to do? 3 things that we need to do today to be able to be different tomorrow. And go out of the meeting and execute it. So empower your people for action is critical, because the quick answer today is probably the difference between succeed or staying in the same level. I don't want to talk about, decrease the point that we started. The 6th point is generate a short-term wins. Again, in these periods, the cycles, the long cycle doesn't work. You know, if before my monthly goal, it was the beautiful metric that we all follow through the month, now should be the weekly one. And have the conversation about the weekly. Winning that week will help us to win the next week and the next week and the next week, at least for 2020. So the next one comment here is every action, every new measure needs to be focused in your market, needs to be focused in your customer, because the customer now is a new customer and the customer now is thinking differently. So every single communication to your customers should be now different. We need to redesign the business model, is the truth. We need to do speed of action today. The companies that are able to do a very quick speed to action, those are the companies that are winning. I just have an example of a different industry that is amazing, that I mentioned at the beginning, Amazon, you know, online shopping. Today, those guys, Amazon, look at this. They are sending messages through TV, through the emails, through chats, to every single one in the US. They are paying today $30, $30 per hour. If you go there with your car and say, hey, I want to be a delivery guy. So they pay $30 per hour if you are delivering goods from the Amazon warehouses to their customers. Speed to action. They need to move quickly, you know? Digitalization today. We are now in a situation that we cannot visit farms. We cannot have the interaction with the farmers today. What if, you know, today we can see what is happening at the farm from our computer, from our cell phone directly? You know, the world of sensors, the world of Internet of Animals is something that will help a lot under current circumstances, to be able to take decisions quickly. And the last one that I think from my heart, that is probably the most important, is all of us, all companies needs to have today a lot of empathy. If we feel struggle because the situation that is happening, just remember that the people who surrounds you, the people to help you to succeed, they are feeling the same. So today, the level of empathy should be critical to be able to do management to the crisis. You know, and it's something that we also need to change, because if we don't change that, we can do the other things right, we can read the market right, we can take the right decision. But today, remember that if you can remember, or you can basically take away just one thing of this presentation, this shared learning today, is speed to action. So action, action, action is probably the name of the game during these circumstances. So the next and last one, just three things that we discussed today. Optimism is the key. We need to accept the brutal facts. We cannot hide the brutal facts. And the decision-making process is the key to be able to turn around. And please do not remember, we are in the best industry. We are in the best businesses of the world, because as you can see at the global level, this is probably one of the few industries that are not collapsing during this period of time. Yes, the situation is not easy. The situation is not the best comparing with other years, because 2020 is a different year. And we need to accept that. Once we accept that, we need to act very quickly, and we need to see the consumer, and we need to produce what the consumer is asking for. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, William, for those really encouraging words, and for you to, for the sharing from your global experience. I think there's a lot that each of us have learned from the optimism to, of course, learning to move fast in terms of decision making, and then, of course, to accept brutal truth. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Juan Francisco. So Juan is from Colombia, and he is the co-CEO of Asimetrix. So Juan is a young leader. He's been in the animal health industry for about a decade. He was the director of intelligent proteins last at Premix. He's held other positions at Premix, which is a leading animal health company, and a part of our alliance as a marketing director, and then of course as the international sales director uh, for Asia, for the Asian region. So without further ado, and for one of the most interesting talks this evening, I'd like to welcome Juan Francisco. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Are you all seeing my screen and listening to me well? Just Christian, just
thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you so much for the invitation. Not only it's a pleasure to be here, actually it's an honor to be with such remarkable presenters. So thank you very much. I'm seeing here the attendance. It's quite good, and not only quite good, but they have been still within the conversation. So I hope to be at the same level of my previous speakers in order to maintain them here, entertained. That's what we wish. So we have been working for more than 10 years in Asimetrix, when there was still not much talk about technology or digital technologies in our industry. And the reason why we started so early is because we believe that the application of use of digital technologies and exponential technologies are probably one of the best tools to optimize complex systems. Complex systems such as the production of animal protein, in this case, chicken protein or egg protein. But the speed of adoption of these technologies in our industry is not as fast as in other industries until now. Now we believe every industry, including ours, of course, needs to be thinking in accelerating the usage of new technologies, new tools, and of course, new ways. And the company that starts out strong in digitization or incorporating such technologies will have a structural advantage over the others. And as William mentioned during his previous talk, it's because the knowledge that you create with digital technologies and with data is more compared to the ones that are not using data or such technologies. So the companies that actually create more knowledge and do more experimentation during not only this crisis, but every time, of course, will have a structural advantage in their industry. The best way to start this process is to have the awareness that we are emotional beings. Most of us think that we are rational beings. Let me tell you, that's not entirely true. Most of our decisions are influenced by our emotions. And if our mindset right now, it's focused in crisis, it's focused in, I don't know, my market, it's decreasing, or my customers are going away, believe me that your decisions will be aligned with such emotions. What this moment needs and what our industry needs, it's to make better decisions. And technology can help us with the objectivity of reality. In other words, it's how we transition from emotional decisions to rational decisions. So how do I start? So that's like the main question. So you can start digitizing your entire value chain and embrace complexity and understand that there are factors, and what are the sum of those factors that are affecting my business, then guaranteeing a healthy continuity of my company in the industry from end to end, from feed to customer, to my consumer. So it's, as we call it internally, it's how do we break up those organizational silos, those divisions that every company today possesses. That's a very interesting path. Actually, we have done it with several customers, but it's a longer process and demands more resources, like time, for example. And right now, time is gold. So as William mentioned several times, right now what we need to start thinking is action, and of course things that can actually help us better. So this is how you can actually start seeing those KPIs, those indicators, and understanding from an end to end how things are being what it's affecting your key indicator. Why is this important? Because you now have a rational tool that can help you intervene what needs to be intervened. That's probably one of the most important things that artificial intelligence and machine learning can actually help you during these times. Or you can start by modules. You can start small, like digitizing farms, for example, in this case, broiler production units. And the question is how how do we start incorporating senses in your houses? How can you start? Let me just see what happened here. Something happened. Just give me a sec. Can you hear me there?
Yes,
hello.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Something happened here, so I'm just gonna set up again. I don't know what happened. Just give me a second now. Okay, so probably that slide is not gonna run. So I'm gonna go back a little bit, and it's how do we incorporate senses and the use of sensors within our farms, and why we believe that's important. It's because when you have data of unprecedented volume, of unprecedented variation, and unprecedented velocity that can be enabled by sensor technology, such as the Internet of Animals, for example, that's the speed of generating knowledge increases exponentially. And those are the companies that will have a structural advantage over the others. So just by imagine that you place those sensors in your farms right now, that you cannot go to farm, that we are socially, I was gonna say apart, but let's say restrained in terms of mobility. Just imagine that during today's crisis and beyond the crisis, you have a digital assistant telling you how your birds are growing and what are the factors that are affecting that growth. So actually you can be sitting here at home, such as I'm right now, and actually looking at my farms and seeing, okay, how much my birds gained today at 6 a.m. Or what is the main factor that affected my growth yesterday. So I can actually call from here the person at the farm and telling you, look, I saw that temperature went up. I saw that ammonia went up. Please try to do A, B, and C. So you can actually execute much quicker. You can actually intervene your processes much faster. And the speed, of course, of progress will be aligned to that speed of execution. So once you get that digital assistant kind of message, you can get into a dashboard like this one, for example. And then you can see, okay, not only what's the weight, but what is the distribution of that weight. And you can see all your farm KPIs given to you the closest as possible to real time. So that's actually one of the main things that you can actually get. But also because today's situation, traditional ways of validating hypotheses or regular experiments are harder than ever. What if such technology can help you explore ways to confirm the value of a particular intervention? So right now, I don't know, birds are growing older, so we need heavier birds. I don't know why. So I decided to include a product that can help with the mobility of the birds, in this case, a metabolite of vitamin D. So the promise of this product is to improve mobility and thus improve technical indicators. So that's the promise of this product. So how can I measure such value? In a different way. So how can we, with this kind of technology, give an approximation of improving mobility. The way we do it, it's by counting the amount of birds being weighed in our scales and understand why such indicators actually improved. So it's not only about how my feed conversion or my body weight gain or my mortality improved. They did, but why did they improve? This is where this kind of new, this kind of more novel kind of technologies can allow you to get, not because of randomness, but because of the objectivity and rational of data. So sometimes to get ahead, you have to change course. This is something that we have been preaching for the last year, I believe. But now, right now, you have the possibility of doing what you couldn't before. A lot of people just thought digitization and usage of digital technologies was a cool thing to do, was a trendy thing to do, but they didn't have the time to do it. So right now, the possibility of this situation is actually telling you, look, you can do this because you didn't have the time before. So by saying this is, how do we transition? How do we like embrace this moment to go from picture maps or to go from picture files? That is how most of our industry operates, and try to move and actually executing that transition to go to movies or this kind of real-time applications that can help you see your operation much more close to reality. So you always will have the right information to make the right decisions. This is how we contribute of making those inefficiencies optional. And of course, is how do we want to contribute to this transformation of the industry in India. So that being said, thank you so much, and willing to share any questions and any responses that you guys might have. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Juan. Appreciate that. That was a very interesting and fast-paced presentation. We will be able to take questions right at the end, where we will have a panel discussion. So we will take questions at the end. I'd like to introduce now, without any further ado, our last and final speaker today, all the way from Colombia, Dr. Juliana Toro. Juliana is based in Colombia, and of course, we've worked very closely with her over the last few months. She is someone who is so very passionate about mycotoxins. She is a global expert in the field, and she is a veterinarian by profession. Juliana has worked around the world with farmers, veterinarians, nutritionists, and scientists. Like I said, I haven't met a person who is more passionate about this subject than Juliana is. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Juliana Toro.
Okay, thanks, Prashant, and thank you all for your time and the presentation of my colleagues. Today, more than a product, we want to talk about our holistic system for the strategic management of toxin binders.
Juli, could you unmute your? Thank you.
Yes, sorry for that. Okay, so as a short summary, let's remember that mycotoxins are secondary metabolites produced by fungi, which are produced during a stress moment of these microorganisms. And they are toxin compounds that cause serious problems in our animal productions. So there are more than 400 types of different mycotoxins, of which very little is known and are under investigation. But at the moment, the most important ones that affect our productions are aflatoxin, ochratoxin, T2-toxin, fumosine, and DON or vomitoxin. There are others that are very well known, but that affect other species, and it wouldn't be the case of India. So it is important to highlight that there is a microbiota of phytotoxin and storage toxin. And in the field, we find a microbiota generated by fusarium fungi, such as trichoticins like fumosin, cearalinone, T2, DON, T2 toxin. And from storage, there's a producer that is a microbiota that is produced by Aspergillus penicillum, such as aflatoxin and ochratoxin as well. So when we test our feeds or our raw materials, over 91% of all feed tested had one or more toxins in them. There is simply no escaping toxins in feed ingredients. So when we sample for any raw material, they all come out contaminated. The differences is in the levels we find, since basically all the raw materials are contaminated by fungi toxins. So it is a very important issue for all our productions. In India, we find results that are very high amounts of ochratoxin and aflatoxin levels become very evident, which are also very important for the health of our birds. And it is really difficult to find these results in other parts of the world. So with these results, it's become very relevant to monitor the analysis carried out of the raw materials for finished product that arrives to our farms. So as we can see, mycotoxin can cause different problems in every major organ of the birds, but it's going to depend a lot of the sanitary conditions and the level of mycotoxins that can appear. So we can see different type of signs depending on each toxin. There is a very important thing, and one of the most important organ is the intestine. It's like the major part of the fabric that we are going to have in our poultry. And it is also the first to come into contact with food toxin. And it is not a secret to anyone that much of the function of the immune system is regulated by the intestine, by the gut-associated lymph tissue. So anything that alters the normal microflora of our birds can contribute to future problems and disease in our productions. So many times, low levels of mycotoxins over long periods of time have been shown to cause decrease in the immune response. So aflatoxin, for example, cause reduced T cell function, decreased antibiotic response, as well as phagocytic activity. Ochratoxin, for example, is going to modulate various aspects of cellular and humoral immunity, inducing the activity of natural killer or NK cells and suppressing the antibody response. Fusarium, on the other hand, these toxins are going to inhibit the production and function of macrophages and affect the production of cell T and cell B as well. And there is another very important issue, and is not the only toxins by fungi, but also bacterial toxins, which are seriously affect the immune system for birds and produce important diseases that affect the performance in our animals. So these biotoxins are toxins that are released when a bacteria dies, either through the use of antibiotics or because the immune system attacks it and dies. For this case, we are talking about some pathogenic bacteria such as E. coli, Salmonella, and Clostridium that are so important for every type of production in our birds. So these bacterial toxins exist in enterocytes. Then there is a rupture that occurs in the thigh junctions, opening file of these toxins through the intestinal epithelium and generating a permeability of the same that finally leads to diarrhea and attention problems that will be reflected on the performance of the animals and important economic losses. So we believe it is time to take back control and put an end to toxin menace. We at Alura have been working tirelessly for several years to bring you a solution that we call celerity. So it's a solution that was designed by definition to serve the needs of more connected, volatile, and colorful future. A solution that brings the powerful of data to our productions in the management of toxin binders. So today, I'm very proud to present you Alura's holistic toxin control system designed to help you build this resilience. So we have looked for alternatives and solutions to properly prevent what can happen to our animals and do it in time to avoid disease and economic losses due to toxins. So this is why our product is just not just a product, but a holistic monitoring system called Mycotoxin. Okay, so at Alura, we truly believe in putting our customers at the center of our universe and building future-proof solutions that bring products and service innovation together to work in perfect harmony. Today, we are happy and excited to offer you a whole bouquet of products and services designed specifically to help your business resilience while mitigating the impact of both mycotoxins and biotoxins as well. So Alura toxins control includes 4 parts. The one is going to be the accurate feed sampling and testing. The second one, that it has to be with Mycotoxin, is going to be the scientific and historical data analysis. The third one is going to be the precise dosing. And finally, with the fourth, we are going to have Celerity, that is our intelligent toxin control system. So let's delve deeper into this exciting offer. So first important point of our system is to be accurate in sampling and testing for analysis, and thus obtain the most accurate data we can obtain. Sampling is very important. Let's remember that regardless of the type of analysis that we can do as ELISA or HPLC, the sampling will determine the results. Because if we don't do properly for more HPL or ELISA that we do, it will not give reliable results. That is why determining samples is always so important. For the second point, we need historical data and data analysis, which we do through our partner Asimetrix that already Juan Francisco shows, who is behind our ideas and developments to help us to provide value through data and digitalization. It is there where we unite our knowledge in Alura to analyze data and generate tools that provide value to our clients with the strategic management of our different products. This is how our platform looks. And as we can see here, I don't know if you guys are seeing my, how to say this, arrow? If we are going to see here, we find how mycotoxin strains are very easy to read, and we can see and pick or choose by raw material. Then we can have and see all the trends that we have, and then here, but you are seeing or not, we can see the limits and have the interactions between mycotoxins. So this is the real platform, and then finally is going to lead us to a recommendation of those and product use as well. As we see here, it provides us with information on how to use toxin binders on time and before making the feed, helping us to take or to anticipate to any situation on the farm that can be affected by mycotoxins. So the third point is one that I like the most, because being dose dependent through data allow us to use our products differently and effectively. In some cases, saving money depending on the trends, and can be okay to allow us to use the minimum doses. Depending on those, we're going to see which doses we can use, because the system is going to give us that information depending on data. On the contrary, the data can show us that we are in an alarm and we need to increase doses. So we can play with a rate that we already have a study and see if we can see and use minimum doses, or we need to increase or just have a medium dose. And that is going to allow us to use these binders in a different way. So it is also very important to link all this information to presence of the symptoms of the farm to keep a track of each situation. So this way we can know what to use and how to use it. Through this data, we can be much efficient in our production since trends and results can vary in real time. It's a super friendly tool, is easy to use, the graphics are very easy to read and interpret, which is totally different from what we are used to. Since normally what we see is we need to wait for some results 1 week or two just to get a number, and everything is going to be standardized, like always just use 1 kilo of this product. So will be the way around. We need to anticipate from the beginning with data, and then having the results with the platform is going to show us what to use, how to use it, and when to use it. So the fourth important issue or point is that our Celerity P and MP, those are our products, have an OPL technology that gives the product a versatility by binding both fungal and bacterial toxins. Furthermore, its technology process are based on the production and transformation of the activated nanoparticles that allow binding different type of toxins and converting the ideal parameters for their function. Also giving us much smaller particle size than other products, making us have 85% more absorption surface and allowing us to use lower doses. So these products, which will be used according to the needs and problem of each farm, Celerity P is going to cover mycotoxins such as aflatoxin and ergot alkaloids. So I'm talking about just polar toxins. And Celerity MP is a broad spectrum product that covers all mycotoxins, but also has a different plus. So I like to talk about versatility here, because in addition, it's just not going to bind fungal toxins, but also is going to bind bacterial toxins that are produced by E. coli, Salmonella, and Clostridium, helping to counteract disease caused by them, like, for example, necrotic enteritis. That is a very important issue in every type of production in birds. So our tool helps us make the best decision on the use of toxin binders additives, which specific farms, and its algorithms are designed to yield accurate data on product use and dosage, then become doses dependent and leaving behind the traditional and standard use of binders. So we can make a difference by using products strategically to obtain a plus or bonus that we didn't know before in toxin binder products. So evolving and migrating to the world of analytical and digitalization tools through our data. So that's all, talking about our value proposition with our product. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juliana, for that very, very informative and encouraging talk, specifically connecting the value proposition that we have to the problem that we addressed, to the topic that we addressed, in this case, building business resiliency. A request to everybody who's attending here today. We have a live poll that's running for us to get some valuable feedback from each of you. So it is my humble request that you spend 10 or 15 seconds giving us this feedback and voting on the poll. And that'll really help us as we move forward on this journey and hold more webinars in the future and hopefully bring you better quality content as well. The other good news is we're pretty much at the end of our session in terms of talks for the day. I'd also at this juncture like to open this up for questions. So if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and then I will be able to unmute you, and then you can ask your questions to our esteemed panel. On our panel today, apart from the speakers, Mr. Somu, Mr. William, our CEO, and of course, Juliana and Juan Francisco from Asimetrix. We have an esteemed panel, Dr. Jayaraman, Dr. Natarajan is here with us, Mr. Subhash Vaidya is also here with us, Mr. Madan Mehti. So please, if you have any questions, now would be a great time for our speakers and for our panelists to have a discussion. So we welcome questions at this juncture.